Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to, I think it's episode 7 now of Prospero Snippets of Wisdom. And this week, we're back onto the theme of mediation. And I've got the amazing Sarah Manning, a family solicitor and mediator from Hall Brown Solicitors. I think you're based in Leeds, yeah?
Yeah.
Not too far away from here. So they're based in Leeds as well. If you needed any of that later on, give us a call. So we might as well get straight into it. Welcome. It's really great to meet you in the flesh for the first time. We've had loads of conversations and bits and pieces, haven't we, over the last year or so. But it's the first time to meet you face to face. So I'm quite excited about this. So tell us about your journey into the field of family mediation and law.
Yeah, I work at Hall Brown Family Law, and I'm now a partner and head of NCDR, which is the Non-Court Dispute Resolution. I first wanted to be a lawyer, and that was my passion. When I was about 14, I think my mum and dad was using a solicitor, and they were moaning about how expensive their hourly rate was. And I thought, oh, I want to be a lawyer. So, not very money orientated at that age of thinking what I wanted to do. I always thought I wanted to do like business law and going into that side, but I just did an LLB law degree. And like I say, mediation was not on my radar of what I wanted to do. And then I started, did my degree, and then I did my legal practice course part-time over 2 years, and I got a job, started working. And then I really liked the family law side of things. So, and I think the business law of doing contracts and things and working on the same document for days really didn't interest me, but I really liked the fast pace of family law, meeting with clients and hearing their stories, and no two cases were ever the same. So I felt that really interested me and wanted to help people as well. So I got a training contract doing family law. At the time when I did my training contract, we did a lot of legal aid work, and back then it was you had to do a mediation information assessment meeting before you issue proceedings. And that really sort of intrigued me of, how clients was looking at why are we going to court when they could actually sit and have a conversation. And then I decided, I think it was April 2011 when they made it compulsory to do an assessment meeting for private work as well as, not just legal aid. And I qualified as solicitor in 2011. And I remember thinking, mediation's the future. Everybody will go through mediation. It's cheaper. Why wouldn't people want to sit down and make decisions themselves? So in 2012, I paid for the mediation course myself and self-funded it. And I just thought this was the future. It took a lot longer for it to get a little bit busier than what I thought. And I sort of started the journey and didn't realise how long a slog it is to become like an accredited family mediator. But so throughout my whole career as a lawyer, like I say, I qualified in 2011 and trained as a mediator in 2012. So my whole career has been focused on mediation. And anybody who knows or works with me knows I always get on my soapbox about how great mediation is. And that's sort of been like the foundations of my whole career. And I think as well, I've made it profitable as a lawyer to be, some people say, why are you saying mediation when you'd get the fees, as a lawyer? And I always think there's enough work to be going round. And so I've sort of specialised as a lawyer supporting clients through mediation as well as doing the mediation myself as well.
That's interesting, because there's so many things. I'll throw all these questions away now. You've generated loads of questions there. So you mentioned that qualifying as a family mediator is quite a long old process. So if I put it into context, as a workplace mediator, if you choose the right provider, a 5-day course, 40 hours, and then you spit out on the Friday, have an exam that you've got to do within a certain time, get your certificate, and you're off. So if you did the exam at the weekend, Monday morning, you're off as an accredited workplace mediator. I'm guessing it's not a week long.
No, it takes about the same 3 years now.
3 years?
Yeah, so you go on the course, and it still is at similar price to when I paid it back in 2012, because I had a look early before our meeting, and I think they're about £3,000, and you have about 9 days in total. I remember when I did it, I went down to London for 3 days on 3 separate occasions. But I think now that was when people did things online. So I think now they do a bit of online and then some in person. And you have to do like a written assignment. And then you are not accredited till you've done a portfolio where you've got to do training, you've got to sit in on MyAMS, you've got to have experience. it makes it really difficult to train as a family mediator because you can't sign off these MIAMs, so this mediation information assessment meeting. When you become accredited mediator, you get a code for the court. So if mediation's not suitable or it breaks down or one party doesn't want to do it, I sign this form and they can issue proceedings. Because there's the pre-action protocol now that you have to have gone through a MIAM beforehand. So what makes it hard is when you're training and you probably do more of just the MIAMs, you can't sign them off. You have to pay for somebody else to sort of do that for you. So it makes it harder, to get that working. So when I first trained, I didn't really anticipate how, that you need this work experience. I sort of paid for the course and thought that that would be it. And then I found out you need a professional practice consultant that you meet with 4 times a year, and they supervise you. And then you have to do 10 to 15 hours CPD a year. So there's lots of additional courses, that go on to that. And because when I trained as a mediator, I was the only mediator at my firm. I had no one to shadow, no one to look at. So I was sort of begging everyone, can I come in and sit on yours? But back then, people was a bit more like, this is my work, and didn't want anybody to sit in with them. They saw you as a competitor. So I really struggled, but I did get another job. Started working at a place in Crombie Wilkinson's in York. And they had lots of mediators. So I quickly did my portfolio there and I was able to do mediations. Myself and Emma Heptonstall, who's a divorce coach now, she went down that route. We used to offer it on a weekends and evenings, to try just get as much mediation and experience as we can. I even had to do some that were for free, just so that you got the experience to do your portfolio. And then once you're accredited, you sort of flying through then. And I know that now they give you 3 years to be able to do that, to get your portfolio together. But it just makes it so difficult if you've not got someone that you can train through. We've just had a lady called Holly in our Manchester office train as a mediator. So she'll fly through it because she's sitting with me on my mediations. But if you don't have that, it's really difficult. So you've got to really want it. It's a lot of effort.
I've got a number of associates and colleagues from various backgrounds who have gone down the family mediation route. And just speaking to them, they reckon there's probably about an 80% dropout rate when you're having to get that portfolio together, because they all find it very difficult to get a sponsor. So if you're in a law firm and you've got a mediator, or you're a mediator in that law firm, it obviously clearly is much easier than if you're an independent person. Argument say like me, I decide, I want to do family mediation, I'll go off and do the course. And then it's finding someone who's willing to take me in to get me to do the portfolio, when ultimately at the end of my portfolio, I'm probably going to go somewhere else and set up as a competitor. So it does seem a difficult field to get into if you're not already engaged in the legal profession, I think. And I know so many people who've done the course and started down that route for the portfolio and just never get there. So in fact, I was speaking to a lady yesterday who is lucky enough to have a solicitor sponsoring her, but it's still taking her forever. So you go through this long process. So you're saying there was things like you have to get so many mediations for your portfolio under your belt, and then you have to do 15 hours CPD a year, etc. So who decides that? Who has said that you have to get 15 hours CPD, let's say?
So it's the Family Mediation Council that's set up, and you have to have sort of like a member organisation. There's quite a few. There's College of Mediators, the National Family Mediation, Family Mediators Association and Resolution. So there's quite a few, for family lawyers to choose from. I'm a member of Resolution and Family Mediators Association, only because the Resolution is part of my membership as a lawyer, more so. But I do the mediation, but I support a lot with what Family Mediators Association do. I used to sit as a director on their board, so I'm a member of both. And some people are a member of a couple of them, and they do lots of training courses and things like that. But it's a difficult one to do, and you don't have to. There's a lot of controversy at the minute about whether you need to be an accredited mediator, as family law, because we're governed by the Code of Practice by Family Mediation Council. But at the minute, it's not like a protected profession. But then you're protected from Family Mediation Council if you have any complaints from your clients. They help you with good standards, you're offering good practice. They brought out a few years ago that when you do the mediation information assessment meeting, it should be a minimum of 50 minutes, where some mediators were doing them for 10 minutes, signing the form to go to court, and you weren't actually getting the benefit out of the MIAM. So they've really tightened up, trying to avoid lawyers just getting them to sign it as a tick box exercise. So there's a lot of emphasis about raising awareness for families that there is a better way to do this. And the court process as a solicitor is so under such immense strain that there is other ways, but if solicitors are explaining to families that there is other options, they just trust their solicitor implicitly and go down this really adversarial route, taking the decision out of their hands, when actually it's been good to have more thorough MIAMs. I've known from some of mine and some lawyers who referred to me who used to previously, can you just sign this MIAM, Sarah? You know, they weren't actually genuinely referring mediation to me. And it's really helped now because I sit with them and I make it my own personal goal to transfer, you know, to sell the mediation to them. And more people are just not aware of their options, but there's much more awareness now than they ever were.
So if I get this right then, so you have to follow a prescribed training route to become a family mediator, go through the course, do your portfolio before you become accredited. But once you're accredited and able to practice, you don't have to be a member of any professional organisation, or do you?
So you become a member, Family Mediation Council.
So is that compulsory before you're allowed to practice?
Yeah, and you have to do a re-accreditation every 3 years as well. Which when that starts coming round, you know, you start thinking, because you have to show what CPD you've done for the past 3 years, and are you covering all the areas? So there'll be domestic abuse, you know, some things for children matters, and finance, and look at what you've been doing. So you've got to redo it every 3 years to keep that accreditation. So you'd always be a member of Family Mediation Council, which is like the overall governing body.
So is that requirement being sort of set out in statute, as it were, for regulation, or is it something that the Family Mediation Council have decided?
They've decided.
So they've decided. So it's not like there's been an act of parliament that says this is how we're going to do. So where it says now you have to go to a family mediator if you're on your way to divorce and have the MIAMS meeting before you can even get anywhere close to a court, which is law, let's say. The Family Mediation Council is set up to sort of oversee and provide a standard, etc., which no doubt is needed.
Yeah.
But they are the ones who have decided that every 3 years you've got to requalify, you have to do 15 hours CPD and whatever.
Yeah.
And is it then set in sort of like statutory regulation that you must be a member of the council before you can practice?
No.
Or is that just become folklore?
Yeah, it's just become the law, and it's sort of because you're not following that. And there's some barristers that have trained as mediators back that haven't done the accreditation, but they still do the mediation. There's nothing stopping people from doing that.
Yeah. I suppose so that if you were out there and you wanted to look for a family mediator, family lawyer, family mediator, you're going to go with the one that's accredited with an organisation that you can look up, as opposed to a bloke that's got a thing on his wall that says he's accredited, but he's not actually in an organisation that ensures he's meeting a set standard.
Yeah.
Let's say it's like, you know, workplace mediation. You know, you don't have to be qualified in workplace mediation to go off and ruin someone's life by saying you're a mediator. But nobody, apart from perhaps the insane, are going to employ a mediator who can't tell you that I've done a course, I've been accredited, and therefore I am real. So I suppose it makes some sort of sense.
And you can't sign the MIAM form. So if the mediation broke down and they say, I want to issue proceedings, that mediator would then have to say, well, I can't sign that form because I'm not accredited mediator.
Then that barrister, for instance, you just referred to, he would have to come to somebody else who is accredited to sign that form.
Yeah, well, they'd have to go have a MIAM with an accredited mediator.
I bet they might find that quite difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, personally, to swallow, to have to go to somebody else and
say,
well, I've called myself a mediator, but I'm not totally qualified.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. So, because I know so many people that are interested in going down that route. A lot of my friends that are mediators in the military talk about, oh, well, when I leave, I'm going to take my family mediation course and, you know, I'm going to set myself up as a family mediator. And I'm like, oh, I think you really do need to do a lot of research and go and speak to somebody like yourself to say, you know, on paper it seems pretty easy, but actually in practice it's quite a hard slog.
Yeah. I'm chair of Family Mediation Week, where every week, the last week in January, we spend a whole week promoting mediation. And we've got free webinars that we've done before, and one of them is about becoming a mediator, you know, free webinar that's on the Family Mediation Council website. So that's always a good place to start and, you know, think about the process. Because I must admit, when I first paid back in 2012, in my 20s, I didn't really appreciate how much time and effort and money it would be. But I feel like it's paid off now. But for the first few years, it was a bit frustrating because it took a long time to be able to get there with the accreditation. So it's just managing expectations a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I think yours is probably a normal story, isn't it? It was something I contemplated for a while. And I think when we were first chatting, I looked at it and was like, I'm way too old to start down this route, and I'm sort of busy enough as it is. But I had a colleague in the RAF who was just finishing his portfolio, and he was I'd left about a year before him, and he was going to leave and join Prospero as our family mediator. And unfortunately, he went in for a quick procedure before he left the military. He's like, well, we might as well sort this out while you're in military, you can do it, and never woke up.
Oh gosh, that's all.
So so we don't do that anymore. I couldn't have the prospect of getting somebody else in now because we had such a good relationship. But so it's a field that I think attracts a lot of people wanting to do it because they can see the benefits of helping families that are in trouble, etc., as opposed to sort of standard workplace conflict mediation.
Yeah.
That's the next question. So what advice would you give someone then who is considering starting off down this route and undertaking the training?
Yeah, just take some time to look up what the training is. Reach out to a professional practice consultant, have something in place. And I feel that in a mediation family community, we're all really friendly. There's lots of groups, like for Family Mediators Association, they have like a group for like young mediators, just training. I don't mean young in age, but just like training at thing, and they have a really good support network. And also, like myself, I have lots of people that come in and sit on my mediations. I'm always like, I don't see it as competitors. I want more and more mediation to take place. So I think we're all quite good at socialising, and get to know, go meet some people. I have, because of work I do as a chair of Family Mediation Week, I have people reach out all the time to me saying, can we have a coffee and tell me a little bit about it? And I think there's lots of ways that you can do that and reach out. And I think just do the research, and between some of them are more expensive, the training courses, but get the one that sort of you feel would benefit you. Do you need to be more in person than remote? Because I think some do more remote than person. So it's just about just planning, I think, and try to speak to people if it's for you, and sit in on some mediations or assessment meetings before you actually pay the money, go down it, because I never did. I have quite a few people that have done that as solicitors that have contacted me saying, Sarah, I'm thinking of becoming a mediator. But also there's lots of different ways you can become a family mediator. So I did it the way where you do your law degree, you become a solicitor and then do it that way. But there's lots of other ways to do it. I know teachers that have worked with, you've just got to prove that you've worked with separated families before, or have them other skills of problem solving, good listener, empathy. So I know that because I wasn't qualified. I think you had to be, back then, I don't know if it's the same case now, back in 2012, you had to be qualified for 3 years. But I managed to do a statement and get somebody to, sort of appeal that decision, because I'd been working with separated families for a good few years as a paralegal, before I qualified as solicitor, so I got passed. So you've got to get over that hurdle as well. So you've got to look into what qualifications, what experience you need to be able to do it as well. Because there's and what skills you're sort of going to be able to bring and help the families.
So do you have to be legally qualified?
No, you don't have to be legally qualified. There's lots of different courses. So I know like Family Mediators Association do like a legal update, to keep you up to date. There's a lot that you'd need to do, because if you're talking about financial mediation, sometimes I struggle to, especially when they're quite complex, how somebody without legal knowledge would be able to do the mediation, because I'm able to give legal information and tide them over. But if you've never had that background, sometimes it's a bit difficult. Whereas when you're talking about children issues, it's a bit more common sense in it, about the time you both spend with the children. So you do need to, on your course, or do extra sort of courses that you need to go, and you need some basic legal knowledge, because otherwise your mediations are just going to go around in circles a little bit without
that makes sense.
that.
Yeah. So how being a family lawyer, how has that shaped how you've become a family mediator?
Yeah, so like I said at the beginning, my whole career has been, do out of court disputes. So a couple of years when they've brought out this new acronym of another one, NCDR, which is the non-court dispute resolution, that they can make cost sanctions if you don't explore other forms of non-court dispute resolution. So that's sort of, I'm just my whole philosophy as a lawyer is anything but court. So I don't do any court work now. I might supervise some files as a partner, you know, with other members of the team, but I don't actively have any legal cases, other than I recently, a couple of months ago, trained to be a collaborative lawyer. So again, that's about giving advice when you're all in the same room together. So there's the two clients, the two lawyers, but you agree sort of what legal advice you're giving them both together in the room. So it's not very positional, you know, on both sides. So that's something I'm quite passionate about, which is a little bit more of in my head, it's a bit more adapted mediation, you know, that you're all together and it's about conversations. So that's an area I'm trying to push. So it's all these skill sets from a mediator. And then there's another thing that where family law's adapted over the last few years is resolution together, or it's like the two client, one lawyer model, which is very similar to mediation, but you can go that step further where you can actually give advice. But it's sort of covered under as a lawyer. So I think from my skill set as a mediator, I'm able to go into these different areas that are adapting all the time, because most people don't want to go to court. I get some mediation referrals to me where they're so complex, you know, there's different businesses. I've had a couple recently where they've got like 4 businesses, they work within them together, they've got really complex pensions and they're saying we don't want lawyers. And I'm saying mediation's not instead of legal advice, I can't give you that advice, but people are just getting more aware, or they've gone on ChatGPT, AI, and knowing the more basic knowledge, and they're like, we don't want lawyers. So that makes the mediation a little bit difficult when I can't give, you know, that advice. But there is other ways we can get around that. Sometimes I'll get a barrister to come in as like an early neutral evaluation, so they can give an indication in the mediation on the law. So even people come in as a mediator who's not legal background, there's other people you can bring into the process to get that skill, you know, expert advice that you need to then unpick it a little bit.
I suppose ultimately, I mean, we all just sit there and think, when you're doing family law or family mediation, it's just about two people who want to get a divorce. And you forget about that some people got really complex, interwoven lives. Like we were saying, they have people who run 4 businesses together. It's not just a matter of, okay, you're divorced, you know, and off you go. And especially, I suppose, when there's family involved as well. So, it's a very sort of different field. So what are the sort of the biggest misconceptions you think people have about family mediation, you know, when they're first told they must come and speak to you guys?
I think at the very early stage of my career, it was very much people thought it was like meditation or relationship counselling. I think it's moved on a lot more that people don't think that now. I do get like phone calls when we invite the other person, they'll phone me up saying, will you tell me about it? Have they chosen you because you're on their side? And I always say, you know, I'm not there to make the decisions. I'm not the judge and jury here. I'm there to help you problem solve, you know, facilitate the discussions between you. So I think there's a little bit of that they think as a mediator we're going to make that decision for them. And people say to me, I've done a MyAm this morning, and they'll say, how many sessions do I need? It's like, well, how long's a piece of string? You know, when are you two going to come up with an agreement? So I think that's always really difficult of trying to get that across to them, that I don't make the decisions, or they'll say to me, oh, my husband will be really charming to you, you know, he'll be saying this and he'll get you on side. I was like, I don't pick, you know, what's going to happen, and I'm not on someone's side. So I think that the way of how the mediator works is something that I'm constantly battling with sort of the general public coming to mediation and what they expect.
Yeah, I think it's the same in my world with like workplace and community. It's no matter where it is, that the first person I speak to, they know, because you've told them that you're neutral and you're impartial and you're there to help them solve a problem. And then they set out, I think subconsciously, their bias is working to try and get you to be on their side.
Yeah.
So they paint a picture of the other person, that, you know, the devil incarnate lives next door, or the person I work with is really, really horrible. And I almost, in my head, maybe I shouldn't be saying this on a podcast, but in my head, I sort of almost have a buzzword bingo. It's like, okay, yeah, so I found out that they're a racist, they're a drug addict, they're an alcoholic, and when I get to paedophile, I almost want to go, yes! You know, we've got all the 4 worst things you could possibly say about the person that you're in conflict with.
Yeah.
And then I go and meet that other person, and they're like, just like the first one, they're like this perfectly normal person, but they go through the same process as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm not going to be here to solve your problem. I'm going to help you solve your problem, even though I could sit there and say, well, why don't you try A, B, C? I'm sure that'll work. We sort of coax them into thinking about it themselves, because when they come up with a solution that they're happy with, it makes it easier for everybody. So I suppose it must be the same in your world. You could almost sit there and say, well, we'll do this, we'll do that, and we'll do this.
Yeah.
and they might agree with it, but they'll walk out the room and tomorrow go, oh, I'm not really happy with that. And then you're back to square one, whereas you coax them to come up with their own idea of how they want to split things and move forward. So lots of similarities and also lots of differences. But I get that when we do a lot of business shows during the year, and we almost have a bet, me and the missus, about how many people will come up to us and start talking about meditation.
Yeah.
Oh, how do you do meditation training? So, well, I have no idea. It's up here, meditation and training. No, it doesn't say that. And I mean, normally we average about 7 per show of people coming up talking to us about meditation. I think I might get a little Buddha and put it on the desk. We've got a Buddha ornament at home. Just take that with us, and just to add to the confusion.
Well, I was asked to do a careers talk at my children's school the other day about mediation or being a solicitor, and I'm thinking, how can I talk to some year 5 children and make, about mediation? Because I thought it's a great opportunity. So then I had this idea of, so the trend at the minute is squishes. So I've got a 9 and 11-year-old, and they're obsessed with these squishy toys, and there's these that are like a dumpling that come in like a plastic tub. They go crazy over them because you don't know what colour you're getting, when you open it. So my son had been away and he'd got this giant dumpling. So I knew that they probably wouldn't have seen this because it was really unusual. So I says, can we have 2 volunteers? And 2 kids go up, and I says, right, you've saved your pocket money together because you couldn't afford, and you saw this giant dumpling that you had to have. So I pulled it out, and all kids were like, wow, what colour it was. So they were both sat there, and I says, you've saved up your pocket money, you've gone and you really wanted this. And then I said to everyone, what's happened now? And all the kids went, they've fallen out, who's going to have it? So I says, right, so let's sort of think about, so they did like a bit of a role play saying why they needed it and why they wanted it. So we went through it. So then they went through the class of why, what they should do. Because I says, as a good mediator, you don't tell them what to do. It's about problem solving, and then they come up with the decision. So everyone in the class put their hand up. One said actually rock, paper, scissors, which I thought was, I says, yeah, but your mum and dad might be a bit annoyed that you've wasted your pocket money if you've lost it. And they were like, oh yeah, that probably would be the case. So then we went on, and they had some really, really good ideas, some of them that I'd not even thought of. And then it went back to the 2 kids that was doing it, and then they said, they decided together that it was going to be a week on, week off, and then they were going to do a rock, paper, scissors of who gets the first week. So I said, but who gets the first week? And it was a really good example, and they really got engaged with it, about trying to show them, how mediation works.
Yeah, because we just, you sit there and just, I call it, I plant a seed in the head at some point that they subconsciously latch onto, and then later on, maybe an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours later, they'll go, what about?
Yeah.
And that's an amazing idea. Thinking at last it's dropped, it's germinated, and we've worked our way around and asked those questions. Thinking that I know what you're going to come to, but I've got to wait for you to say it.
Yeah.
But I mean, kids are fascinating. I embarked a few years ago on a peer mediation program, and kids are just like sponges. They lap up in it, and it's great. You can go to some primary schools, and they've got little kids walking around at playtime with a bib on that says mediator.
Yeah.
And if some kid feels they're being bullied, they're not allowed to play football, or someone's being nasty to them, instead of going up to the teacher or the supervisor that's out there, they go to the mediator. And the mediator for her time stands by the pole, and if you've got a problem, you go to the mediator, and then these little peer mediators set up a proper mediation. And they tell the teacher that these 2 people have come to me, they want to go to mediation, and they do it just like I would do it. They have a meeting with one person. It's only about 20 minutes for them, and a meeting with the other person. They go through all of that on confidential. It's amazing to watch. And then they get the 2 protagonists together for a joint meeting, lasts about 15 minutes, and they get to an agreement, and they're out playing football, and it just takes a huge workload off the teachers and training staff when 2 kids have fallen out with the teacher trying to deal with it. But the kids are really absorbent. And that was going to be going into schools doing a peer mediation program and teaching them. We ran a couple, and then peer mediation sort of got taken over by another one of the self-proclaimed professional bodies that sort of doesn't apply to me. So we stopped that, and I gave all my peer mediation training stuff to another person. And I've seen a thing recently, I think you might have touched on it just a minute ago, and it was about child inclusive mediation when it comes to family. So what is that, this child inclusive mediation?
Yeah, so I trained as a child inclusive mediator I think it's about 5 years ago. So it's just an additional advanced training, and then for you to be able to speak to children to ascertain how they're feeling. So some people, there's a misconception about that, the child says what's happened. We've all seen a film or program where they've sat a child in a room and says, "Who do you want to be with, mum or dad?" And it's certainly not like that. And sometimes it's just because I'm helping a family, and if I know the children, every child's totally different. It sometimes can help me knowing a little bit about how they are and how they're feeling. But sometimes you might say, if we could change anything, what would it be? I'm always just a bit mindful because I'm not from a counselling background. You're there with a child for an hour, and I think it could, it'll stick in their minds of seeing me. So I'm always a bit apprehensive if there's like neurodivergent issues, or if they're saying that, or depending on the age of the child or the complication of the safeguarding concerns. So I probably say no to more than yes. Or also, if I feel that the parents aren't willing to listen, it can be more damaging to a child that they've actually spoke openly to me, felt like, oh, finally somebody's listening to me, and nothing happens, and then they go to court and spoke to another professional, and then they might not open up to that second professional as much. So if I feel like they're not going to listen, so I always have a session with them both, and we talk about what we say, but sometimes they can't even agree on where the child's going to be when I speak to them. So sometimes you think there's no hope with this. But the one you can speak at any age. There's no restriction, but it's the age of 10 plus where the child has a voice, about arrangements that affect him. And when you get to like 13 plus, children vote with their feet. Even if you got a court order that says child's to be with dad, if you don't want to go, the police aren't going to go pick him up kicking and screaming, and they usually walk into school. They'll just run off back to the other person. So it's always a difficult one. But the ones that I've done that have been really successful are when they're sort of teenagers. And teenagers are so fickle that they do what they want to do. They're very selfish, And sometimes when I've done it, it's been but because there's such conflict between mum and dad, and if they say, well, I want to stay at mum's house, dad's thinking, well, mum's alienating her, mum's doing this. And actually, on the ones that I've done, the children have been like, no, I want to be at mum's because all my hair stuff, my hairdryer, my straighteners, my makeup's there, all my school books are there, I have to travel further away, and then my boyfriend lives down the road and my friends there. It's not about that I don't like dad, even though mum's sort of jumping on that. And I've had another one where one sibling wanted to spend more time with the other parent than the other one. And then mum was very much, no, they have their siblings, they need to be together. I spoke to them both, and I like some space away from my sister. I like having to, when we get in the car, we listen to the music I want rather than what she wants, older sister. So that was quite easily solved. But I think when there's conflict and no communication between mum and dad, they sort of make things up or thinking there's an issue when there isn't, and it's just teenagers being teenagers and things. Or what happens is when there's no communication and no co-parenting, that maybe, for instance, mum lets the child stay up on the PlayStation longer and dad's more strict. As a child, where would you want to go? Mum lets you eat ice cream whenever you want, dad's like strict lunches. You would naturally do that. Or if there's a conflict, playing each other off, well, mum got me this PlayStation, what are you going to buy me, dad, for birthday? And it's that conflict. So it's about then trying to get them to co-parent again. But sometimes speaking to the children, I think there were one where the daughter really didn't want to go to the dad's home, but in the finances that we did, dad really wanted to keep the house and it was really important to him. But then the daughter couldn't get over when he got a new partner that the new partner was, even though she liked the new partner, that was sat on her mum's sofa eating from her mum's plate, that. So even though they argued to have the house, actually that had a detrimental effect on that, because I think if they'd have bought two separate houses and not the familiarity of the child, but that just goes to show how different each child is, and you've just got to listen to them and see how they're feeling. But like, again, it's mum and dad that make the decisions. They're the parents. Sometimes I'll say to them, what do you want? Well, I want them to get back together. And I'll say, well, I can't, I'll tell them at the beginning, there's things that we can help with you and things that we can't. But it's always a really nice, I always enjoy the child inclusive mediation. And like I say, they're the most sensible people you speak to, when dealing with the mediation.
I suppose I don't really have an axe to grind in that breakdown of a relationship, potentially. It's interesting though, because it reminds me of a community mediation or relationship mediation I did a few years ago in very similar circumstances. And it was just making me thinking about where is that blurred line between family mediation and divorce law and family law and interpersonal conflict mediation, which is the thing I do. And I remember doing a mediation, family weren't going through a divorce or anything like that. but they had separated, and again, it was a situation, I think it was the 15-year-old daughter was having an issue with both parents and was spending a lot of time with the grandparents. And I was asked to come and mediate that sort of almost a four-way mediation on what was mediate the child issue and whatever. And they're thinking like, would that have been really my field or would that have been your field? I mean, we it worked. We got it all sorted out in the end. And it was very much when you were just saying about one parent lets the child do exactly what they want and the other parent is a bit more disciplined. And it was obviously not working with the disciplined person, clearly, again, another teenager. But yeah, I think sometimes there is that blurred area. And I think maybe the question that I want to ask from that, and as you know, I get, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 people a month phone us up and say, I need a mediator. And they immediately start telling me that, you know, I'm divorced and my husband's got custody of the child, but I've got the right to take them on holiday, but he's refusing. Can you help? And I'm like, no, that's not my field, but I can, you know, forward you on to somebody that I do know. So if you go through a family go through a divorce, they've separated completely and custody rights have all been sorted out, everything's been finalised and done. And I had this, I think it was the last one I referred to you, I think, when the lady phoned me and said she wants to take her child away on holiday this year in the summer. Last year it wasn't a problem, but this year the husband's like saying no. And I need that sorting out. It's like, does that have to come back to a family lawyer, or is it something that a conflict mediator can deal with? Because I thought afterwards when I referred, I thought, well, why couldn't I have sort of said, well, I can mediate that for you. I can sit down and do a standard mediation, have a chat with the husband about the issue, have a chat with you about the issue, and then get you both together and maybe try and sort out a solution, even though I know the solution will probably have been written down somewhere about who has what rights and whatever, with the idea of potentially, I could help you solve your problem right now, potentially. And if I can't, then you can go and engage your lawyer again. But I was thinking potentially in terms of it was cheaper to come to me than it was to go to a lawyer. And I think I probably suffered from that. The difference between the lawyer and the mediator at your level, as it were. So what would your advice be to relationship mediators like me faced with a situation like that, post a divorce and an agreement? What would you think the correct route would be?
I'd have said in that position, that's the typical children family case that we have where, you know, they've got court orders in place, but things become difficult further on down the line. And I think the difference is the legal information. So in that mediation, I'd be able to say, you know, if you took them without consent, that's abduction. That'd be classed as abduction. You've both got parental rights, so you both need to consent to it. If there's a court order that is like a lives with order or something, and part of the order, then they can take them out of the country up to 28 days without the other's consent. So I'd have a look at the order so I can give legal information, you know, about what things are, which probably if you wasn't a family lawyer or had that background, you wouldn't be able to do. And one of the things as well to close the gap between mediations, what I tend to do is say, what's the next stage? If you go to court, you're off on holiday in 2 months. This would take 6 months before you get an outcome. So you're definitely not going on the holiday if we go through. There's other things like arbitration, that's private proceedings that sometimes if you don't agree at mediation, you can go to. So there's little things like that that probably people wouldn't be aware of. And also about the cost estimate. So I'd be able to say, you do know if you do this for that holiday, of where, you know, depending on the conflict, or I always focus it around the child, you know, what does the child want to do? So I suppose there's little bits more of skill set, you know, in that sense to do with family orientated. And the cost estimate's always a good one to get people to focus their minds, you know, when they know how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take in court. So, but it wouldn't stop you from having them conversations. It's the same as if somebody was, I get some inquiries in the past about when they're having a dispute over a will, you know, when there's family. I've once had someone come to me where he wants to mediate between an adult daughter that don't want to see him, you know, when they're no longer a child. So sometimes I think, like you say, you know, it can help with that in terms of the conversations. It's just then knowing, I think in the children's side of things, if it was an application like that, or, you know, you sometimes want more legal information, so having a family lawyer background. But it's the same when you look for a mediator. Some family mediators are not from a legal background. I probably always say I'm probably a bit more robust because I know what the law is. I can give cost estimates. Because in my office, in our Leeds office, we have lots of people going to court all the time, so I know how the court deals with it, what their approach is, where sometimes you're not as able to give that information, which can sometimes just, like I say, focus the minds on it.
Yeah, because it's just that particular one, I just sat there, I think, that evening and just thought about, it's a blurred sort of grey area. And I think, I mean, obviously, clearly I did because I passed it on, but I erred on a no, because if there's something being written down, you know, if I don't really understand what that is, then I could end up making the situation worse.
Or co-mediate is a good thing, because sometimes when I've done a really complex financial mediation where they're owning businesses together and running them, and they're wanting to continue running the businesses after they've separated, you need, like, sometimes I've got a civil mediator to come in, or someone who specialises in commercial, and you can help with both dynamics. Sometimes I co-mediate with therapists, you know, like family consultants that have more of that therapeutic background if I felt that's needed, and that's not my skill set. So I think sometimes it's just thinking of that skill set. So in that scenario, we could have co-mediated, you know, and done it that way.
Yeah, it would have been interesting. Maybe next time I'll come along. Because I've done mediations where relationships have broken down, but it's not, you know, father's fallen out with daughter over a period of time, but there's no divorce or custody, stuff like that. But I pick up on something you said earlier on as well, is it's always very, very difficult, isn't it, sometimes to remind people, and also to stop yourself getting dragged into the counselling part. It's quite again, another blurred line, isn't it? You know, when you're mediating and you're trying not to slip into the counselling, you know, because I do a lot of conflict coaching when I mediate. So I'll sort of get people to analyse how they've approached this conflict so far, and, you know, what the results were in the approach you took. And we throw in a DISC profile for whenever we're doing workplace mediation. Everyone gets a free DISC profile, and then a complete debrief on that profile, and then a detailed brief on, this is you, this is your DISC score, and this is him and his DISC score, and this is where you rub each other up, these are your trigger points, but this is where you can work together really well. And then we sort of talk to them about the way they communicate given their DISC profiles and how they might want to think about that. Next time the boss says, okay, you've got to go off and work with Sarah on this next project, you know, I don't want to a repeat of what happened last time. You can get your DISC profile out and go, okay, right, I know how these would trigger Sarah if I take this approach, so I'll go a different way.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how many different types there are. And so you mentioned the civil commercial style. I don't know any. I don't know any civil commercial mediators. I know
there tend to be more barristers from when I've looked into it. You know, barristers that have been trained as mediators.
Certainly, from when I first started off, there were a lot less barristers and lawyers did civil commercial, and I think now I've started to have more and more people come to CIDA, you know, the confederation that we set up, saying that I'm a qualified civil commercial mediator, but I'm not getting any work because everyone now says, oh, I want a lawyer or a barrister to run this. So I think it's an arm of mediation that's been swamped now by the legal profession. Well, because I'm not a civil commercial mediator, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I did sit on a CPD one a few months ago, a civil commercial CPD based in North London, run with a load of barristers who obviously clearly live in North London, and realise they live in a very, very different world to the rest of us. And I'm watching this mediation going through that was about a hedge, and thinking, like, I'll do this pro bono for community mediation when somebody's got a hedge between two houses that's getting on one neighbour's nose, up one neighbour's nose. Yeah. In the end of that civil commercial mediation that was CPD, there were about 400 people watching it, which was quite impressive. The total legal bill and everything that had gone on got into the hundreds of thousands of pounds. It was like, you do know you can just take your hedge trimmers to it if it's over your boundary, you know, and you can just do that for, you know, there is a law, it's encroaching your boundary, you can just cut it if the other neighbour is not willing to do it themselves. And we do that for free. And I think the whole thing would have cost £450 for the organisation that had set it up. And you've got hundreds of thousands of quid, and they're like, yeah, you're all North London barristers, you know, it's like clearly out of touch. It's like somebody's hedge is overgrowing my garden. My first instance wouldn't be to contact a lawyer. It would be like maybe go around next door and say, any chance I can cut your hedge? Yeah. You know, but madness. You mentioned about your family mediation week, but you run a book club as well, don't you?
Yes.
I've seen that out there.
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 7 years now, but it's a book club that's for like helping separated families. So we have a lot of people that come on that might be counsellors, divorce coaches, lawyers, mediators, and it tends to be, so one we did recently was The Co-Parenting Method by Marcy Shaw, which is a really good book, you know. So it's about resources. So whenever I see a legal client or my assessment meetings, I always send everyone off with loads of books or resources, you know, and things. So I think it's good for people to feel a bit more in control, reading up on things and stuff. So yeah, we do a lot of books. So the next one we're doing, actually, it's a little bit different. It's Keeping Sane in Family Law by Anne-Marie Cavella. So that's an interesting one that we do. So it's all a bit about supporting other practitioners working in family law, really. But we do get some good discussions. Lots of people that I know have wrote books, you know, professionals. So like Anne-Marie, who's coming to the next one, she's going to come for the first 15 minutes, you know, as the author and talk to us a little bit. And we have a really good group of people that come. It tends to be on Zoom. Before the pandemic, we'd meet at the Novotel Hotel. It'd be 3-course lunch with a glass of wine and a little bit about the book. And then when in pandemic, I carried it on online, and then we got more people nationally. So I didn't really want to then cut them people out who'd been doing it for a couple of years. So yeah, it's nice just to do it. It makes me read the books.
I'm just trying to get my head around a 3-course lunch, but just 1 glass of wine. That doesn't work for me. So you decide what book it is. How long do you get to read it?
Usually we do them like every 3 or 4 months. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen a few of these around. There's another mediator runs one, and then she's a civil commercial. It's Danny. She's got a double-barreled name, but it seems to be like every couple of weeks there's a new book. I just like I like reading. I really do. But yeah, I couldn't plow through a book in a couple of weeks just to do a book club thing. Get in the way unless they're relatively simple books.
Yeah.
And I don't mean simple in like Janet and John. I just mean books that are quite small. So like I don't know if you've seen it. Never Split the Difference.
Well, I did that one on my book club when you recommended it before, so we did that one. Yeah. It's
brilliant. I mean, that book is just fantastic. Because I think I actually used his formula when I bought my new car. And I never negotiate. I sort of like, oh, is there any money off? And they're like, there's no money off, but I'll give you a set of free car mats. And I think I've got something. And then this one. Last year, I just thought I was reading that chapter in the book, and I thought I'm just gonna try it. So Tracy looked at me like I was going mad because she'd never seen me do this thing. And they'd had, to be fair, they'd already taken a couple of grand off the car. They'd given me more for my Nissan Joke that I had than I was expecting. I thought I'm just going to try it. So I just did his formula and used the words he said. They'd already had the sales manager, then the garage manager give me all their discounts, and I got this bit of paper out, and I'm like working things out, and I was just like, the absolute maximum I can afford is whatever it was, £347.23, and they were up at like the £400, and they're like, do you know what? I know you've cut me a really, really good deal. I really appreciate all the stuff you've given. I really love the car, but I just can't get any further than that. So I'm really sorry to have wasted your time. Maybe I'll come back next year and whatever. And then just a second, stay there. And then they went away and pondered, and they come out. We've had a word with the area manager, and he says, we can do it for £360 a month. I'm like, yeah, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
And and Mrs. is looking at me saying, you said the most you could afford was £347.23. They go to £360, and you went, yeah, I can do that. Oh no, it's this book I'm reading, and it was amazing. It's like, it works, and it is such a good book, and there are a few others like that. So you work at, was it Hall Brown?
Yeah.
And so if I was looking for family mediators, family lawyers, what separates you guys from the rest?
So Hall Brown are just a boutique family law firm, so that's all that we do. So everyone in our firm are specialists. We've grown we just had our 10th year anniversary, so we've been going 10 years, and in that time we've got 6 offices now. So we've got London, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds and Sheffield. So we've grown quite rapidly in that time. We deal with all aspects, so we have quite high-end, high net worth clients, do a lot of sport professionals, but then we also deal with, so other firms that probably do a lot of them cases only deal with a certain figure, up. We do a broad spectrum because we have more junior members of staff, so we are able to service any issue come to us. I joined 2.5 years ago, and I introduced mediation as a service that we offer. And since then, in the last 2.5 years, I've been focusing on other areas of non-court dispute resolution. So like I say, that collaborative law I said and resolution together. And recently we've just had 2 of our lawyers train as arbitrators. So they're able to do, the arbitrator can make, it's a bit like private court proceedings where they can make an award, which is then legally binding, on the parties. So they do that in children and finance. So we offer a full suite of non-court dispute resolution. So I think we offer the full service. So if people want to come in, they want to go to court and they want to be litigious, if it comes to me, I was like, I'm not the lawyer for you, but here's somebody else at the firm that can do it. So we offer everything as a full package, and we've got loads of specialists that work. So there's nothing in terms of family law that wouldn't be able to service across the offices, and we all get on really well. The offices, I regularly go work in other offices as well. So it's a really lovely firm to work for, and everybody seems to be, really friendly. They're very experienced. So we're able to offer a full service across the offices.
So it sounds like quite a large but quite small firm.
Yeah.
That you've got a family sort of relationship, as it were, even though you've got like 6 offices spread around the country. From what you're saying, I can just see it in your face. It feels like a really great place to be.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned arbitration. So loads of people out there, most of them haven't heard of mediation. I would suggest. Everyone knows litigation is going to be really expensive. It's going to take a long time. It's going to be really, really painful. Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned arbitration. So for the people that don't understand the difference between arbitration and mediation, what is the difference?
So the arbitrator sits as sort of like as a judge, and they make the decisions. So we do a lot of, if you go to an arbitration for financial or children matters, usually they specialise in either area, and they sit as a hearing. But the difference is when you go to court, that you've got their imposed timetable, you have the dates that they give you. It takes place in the court building, so you've just got a lot more autonomy in arbitration. One of the things I really like is if we reach an impasse in mediation, it can seamlessly run on to arbitration, because unlike the court proceedings, the judge can make an order on anything. So even if you've made good work at mediation, then you go to court, everything's off the table then, mediation's without prejudice, and it's then starting from the beginning, you're back to doing disclosure and things like that. Whereas at arbitration, as a mediator, I can help fill out the ARB1, which is the instructions to the arbitrator. So if we've agreed maybe how the sale of the family home's going to work, we've agreed the time with the children, we've agreed everything, how they split the pensions. The only thing they can't agree on is maybe the level of spousal maintenance or something. You can then just ask the arbitrator to determine on that specific issue. So and you can do it on paper or you can do it in person. So again, it's so flexible. You can do as much or as little, and you get to pick the arbitrator. So on some mediations that I've done before, where it's quite specialised in terms of a business issue, you can find an arbitrator that specialises in that area. Well, when you go to court, you could have a judge that doesn't even specialise in family finance proceedings. There was a children lawyer, so you've just got more control. Also, if anyone's been to court lately, it's not the best place. You're lucky if you get a chair, a glass of water. The toilet's not very nice. Sat with other people that are going on, because there's lots of there might be criminal things that are going on that day. Where when you do the arbitration, it's in offices. It's usually really nice. You get a nice coffee, you get lunch. It's just a much more pleasant experience personally when you see it between the 2 forms.
Yeah, and it's binding as well, isn't it? It's not like you go to a mediation. Certainly in my world, go to a mediation, you come to a really great agreement, but 3 weeks down the road, it all falls apart, and there are no consequences. You then can have an option of going, okay, well, then I want to go to a workplace tribunal or whatever. Court's a court. We all know that when the judge or the jury makes their decision, that's the decision. And arbitration is the same, isn't it? When you agree to go there, you have to abide by the decision. It's not like in 3 weeks' time I didn't like the decision the arbitrator gave me, so therefore I'm not going to do it. It is legally binding as well, isn't it? Yeah,
you get an award and then you just get it transferred into a court order. It works really well for children matters, especially, like the holiday situation you were talking about. You could get a hearing in 2 weeks about the holiday that you've both agreed, whatever they say is binding. It's good for, like, if people, as we're getting up to school choices, if they can't agree on a school, a lot of them go through arbitration, when it's them type of more simple issues. So you'd go through. So I always think it's good to try the mediation first, and then a lot of the times, if you reach an impasse, you don't have to just say, well, you go into court. There is other options of non-court dispute resolution. Something else that I do is hybrid mediation. which is sort of another qualification that you can do. Again, you don't have to have done the qualification, but anybody who wants to have other professionals involved in the mediation, it's good to sort of go on one of these courses because you just have more confidence. You know what to put in the agreement to mediate. And that's including other professionals. So a lot of the times it's lawyers, so I end up mediating the egos of lawyers, which I think is more common in civil mediations and things, isn't there, when the lawyers are present. But in family, traditionally, lawyers wouldn't be there. But when it's more complex, I think sometimes it's much easier to do it. Or also, the MIAM I was doing this morning, they've already exchanged financial disclosure for finances. They've already put proposals for, they've reached an impasse. Well, they've already been doing solicitors' correspondence, so it seems silly for them to meet with me, when there's quite some thorny issues. So sometimes just getting everybody in the same room and hearing the advice that each person's giving to their client is really helpful. And usually when you set up one of these days, they're quite expensive. You've got both your lawyers there, you're paying for me, and everyone comes a bit with a different mindset, suited and booted and whatever. And I've had a sort of 100% success rate with the mediations when I've been doing them when everybody's in the room. It's not very popular, the hybrid mediations with children matters. I've only done a couple. And I did one recently, which was a Schedule 1, which is where you are unmarried and you've had a child, but child maintenance service, when you deal with the payments for child, they only look it up to 155,000. So if you earn over that, the court has jurisdiction to be able to deal with it. So it was quite complicated, and we had lawyers involved, but because they don't happen that often, these Schedule 1 claims, it was just a very difficult case, in terms of advice, and it just wasn't working. One person was very fixed on what their thoughts were and the other person were, so it probably ended up in court proceedings. But it was the first time I've done it and it didn't go as well as expected. But I think in that case, it's sometimes good to have like a barrister's opinion or something, but there wasn't interested in getting like an early neutral evaluation, where a barrister might come in and say what they think is fair. And I think if they'd have done that and heard what somebody independent felt, because it's, both parties had really good points. And I always think as a lawyer when I'm doing them, if I was sat with Mum, I'd have probably, said the same thing and same thing with the other client, because as lawyers, you're looking out for your own client's best interest, but having someone neutral, there's always a balance somewhere.
Yeah, that I should imagine it's ingrained in the genetics of a lawyer though, isn't it? It's I'm going to fight tooth and nail for my client, and it's about win-lose.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to employ a lawyer that never wins, but has been fair. It's like, I'm looking for a lawyer. I want to win this divorce. I'll go for this guy because he's got 100% track record. So I think sometimes there is a difficult thing. So, well, thank you for that. It's been a real sort of exploration for me, for sure, because I didn't know very much about family mediation at all, about what the differences are between what you do and what I do, and where those grey areas might be. And hopefully people watching and listening will have learned some stuff if they ever need, unfortunately, to come and get your services, as it were. Yeah. So we're just going to round off with a few things. So what's your favourite tipple?
Tipple? Oh, I like a white wine.
What sort of white wine? Any particular one?
Sauvignon. Oh, I quite like actually I've going moving a bit over to the rosé blush ones now. Yeah,
Tracy's, my missus is heavily into her rosé blushes and whatever. Yeah. Was that chicken wine they all refer to it now?
Oh, yeah.
We'll have a bottle of chicken wine. And I'm like, chicken wine, madness. Favourite food?
Oh, favourite food? I'm gluten-free, so it restricts a lot of my things, but I love Thai food. I think that's my favourite at the minute.
Okay. And cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs.
Cracking stuff. Right, the right answer, definitely. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. It's been really, really good fun having you along. So for anybody who might need Sarah's services, remember that's Hall & Brown. Sarah works in the Leeds office. So if you need the services, you know where best to go to. And I can't recommend them enough. I always push anyone who comes to me for family mediation at Sarah's way. Next up for episode 8, we've got Rob Dennison from Underglass Media and Sylvia Powell from the People Compass businesses. So if you've got any questions you'd like to ask them, DM me and we'll throw them in. So thank you for watching again. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.